Well, I personally believe that it's the next stage of commitment. So even though you're living together, it might be circumstances that have brought you together and why you're living together. Sometimes it's not just a reason for commitment at the time, it just happens. So when you choose to get married, you're choosing to make those vows to each other. And I strongly believe that if someone truly wants to commit to you, they'll make those vows.
I'd agree with what Priscilla's saying, but also getting married doesn't also guarantee anything. Getting married doesn't also guarantee anything anyway, but I think I'll speak from a woman's perspective. As she said, it might be one circumstance or the other that brings people to live together. However, when you make that bold step, that is actually a choice that you're making, a very informed choice. And also men, I see men, the issue men tend to have with living together and having to go and get married is that I think there's that notion of why pay for it when you get it for free? You know, not in terms of obviously the dodgy stuff, but if you're getting somebody to cook for you, to clean for you, to be doing everything as if you were married, then why do you need to go and spend all that money to actually, marry them? But then marriage is not also just about how much money you're spending. Some people just have a very simple ceremony and spend next to nothing, and they have a very successful married life. Some people actually spend millions and they still have a very unsuccessful marriage. So I think really it's down to the two individuals, and it's very circumstantial, as Priscilla says. But for women, it is the next step to commitment.
I think with this particular question, people can see in two different versions. They can see, what's the point in getting married when you're already in a situation where it feels like you're married? Which is why I think, for example, with the men in the first part, they were answering it like, the difference is that it's just something that you've signed on a piece of paper and you've got a ring on your finger, but your life is not really going to change that much. Why get married? It's a different question. Why get married? For respect, for religious reasons. As you were saying, as a woman, you see things differently. So for me personally, I do want to get married, yes. I've lived with someone before, and I've also been in a relationship where I haven't lived with someone before, and there is a difference. So I think when you're living with someone, it feels the same as when you're married to someone. So why get married when you're living with someone? I can see why people would say, well, there's no point. Me personally, I do want to get married one day, yes. So, but from a man's point of view, I see why they say what's the point, because your living situations won't really change that much. You're still going to argue, you're still going to get on, you're going to have your ups and downs, but the reason why you would get married is for those specific reasons, for cultural reasons and respect and,
And security.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one, security. You see, I can only say something about biblical point of view, because the Bible says, who finds a wife find a good thing. So I think marriage is an institution between man and woman. So living together, if you love the person, then marriage is the best thing you can have. But if you just economically, just to make your life comfortable, or just to pay bills and just to put things together, that the marriage is not for you. But if you love somebody that you want to share the rest of your life with, and that's why you go in and make a vow that I will spend the rest of my life with you because I love you, that I want to stay with you. And the Bible also put it that way. So whoever find a wife, you find a good thing, a beautiful thing. It doesn't mean that the trouble will not come. Even though if you have a girlfriend, you're living with your girlfriend, we all been there before, it still will be the same. Like you said, there's not going to be too many different changes in there. Yeah. But all those obstacles will still come. But marriage, it will make you belongs to somebody. You no longer belong to yourself, you belong to your partner. Because the Bible says the two become one. That you belong to your wife belongs to you. You don't make decision without them, and they don't make decision with them. And when you have children, the children will follow that the same line.
Yeah,
so marriage is if you ask me, why get married if you can get everything you want? Marriage is to belongs to your partner, belongs to.
Belonging. And I think also another thing that just dropped in my mind is, I think when people live together, you know, for example, if they're two young people, very ambitious, like, you know, living together, you begin to acquire things, isn't it? It's when you begin to acquire assets, you begin to have children and stuff. It's actually getting married, even though you're living together. It's that it kind of, I think it gives everybody the security, because then people can't just get up and walk away. From a legal perspective, or from a legal standing, from a legal point of view, when you get married by ordinance, obviously in law, you are husband and wife, and there are rules governing, you know, the relationship. Whereas if you're just cohabiting, even though now common law does allow for some room for people not to still do what they want, I think it just gives that security that you're not working for nothing. Because there have been so many instances, relationships that, you know, people have worked so hard and invested so much, and then one person walks away. It could be both the man or the woman anyway, and then the other person's left with nothing, and or they're left destitute, you know. So it's kind of I think it's a bit tricky. There's so many different.
So it give you security.
Yeah, you get the security when you get married, because, you know, before people have to get a divorce, the kind of it's such a lengthy process. There's all kinds of things that go on. It's a stressful thing. So then people don't make that decision lightly, even though these days a lot of people do get divorces. But I think, as he said, from a biblical, depending on what your reason is for wanting to get married, when you do it, these are all enhancements. It's, you know, little enhancements that also go with it that make it worth your while as well.
I think in the last one they touched upon people, they can walk away at any point anyway. But I do strongly believe that when you are committed in a marriage, it's not as easy to walk away.
Yeah,
you have a different
right.
mindset.
That's the point.
You know you're in. You know you've made this decision, so no matter what, you will fight it through.
That's
so
why we call it family.
Exactly. You don't go to bed necessarily on an argument. You want to solve it, because you know you've got tomorrow to wake up. You might have kids to deal with. You know, you don't just let things go and think, oh, you know what, I'll just leave her or I'll leave him. There's a lot more to it, and I think it is a big step of commitment.
And if you're living together, you can just pack your bag and you're off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you have children, you have wife, or you have something together,
it gives you a sense of responsibility.
Exactly.
But then that's what's the difference in, say, you have children and you're living together, but you're not married, and you're married, living together with children.
Mm-hmm.
You can still find it difficult to just walk away from both, you know, points.
No, yeah,
whether
you
you're married or
can.
not.
You can, but the only thing is that depending on what you've acquired together, what you've built together, what, you know, what kind of experiences you've gone through together, all those things will come into play. Like, for example, if all your finances, you know, and it's sad that I'm mentioning the financial side, but it seems like the kind of world we're living in now, everything actually revolves around money. It's a very financially capital driven, you know, world we're living in. So a lot of people, the selfishness and the greed and all those things come into play. You'll be very surprised how, you know, there's a very thin line between love and hate. Something really little can happen and somebody's just off, and that's it. You know, but as you know, everybody's actually agreeing, when you make that commitment, for men it's always about, oh, do we really need to spend? But I think it's not even so much the financial side for men. It's also because naturally men have it in, I think men just like to kind of be free. They just never want to really kind of be pinned down. Men like to have that freedom of movement. I would say.
But then you can take from the argument of, is it a cultural thing as well? Because it could be different. So there's a lot of like men, even that are English or British born men, that are really into marriage and they look to get married. But then you might look at our culture, kind of come from Ghana, that which way round is it? So there's so many different arguments we can look at.
And also, I think with marriage as well, the whole thing, that's why I said the world we're living in, unfortunately, is now all about money. But, you know, getting married really should not cost much, if you really think about it, because marriage is actually, from whether a biblical perspective or even a worldly perspective, marriage is actually making people witnesses to, you know, a commitment, you committing to somebody, and, you know, just it's a public declaration, or it's a declaration by two people, you know, that they want to try and have a life together. So if you really think about it, whether you spend £1 million or £10, you still have the same, you're going to have a marriage certificate, you're going to, you know, and then you're living, as you say, your living arrangement, whatever you're doing in your day to day, it's still all going to be the same. So I think people kind of have made it also difficult because of the world we're living in now. More and more, the actual essence of what marriage is kind of being watered down and washed down, and very soon people wouldn't even know why we get married, but we do anyway, you know, whereas it's supposed to be people building a family together, building a life together, building a future together, you know,
respecting each other. I respect you enough to marry you.
And as Priscilla mentioned as well about the cultural thing, it's quite interesting because, you know, I had this conversation yesterday anyway about how, strangely enough, like when you take a segment of African men, typically a random sample, and you take a sample from, let's say, America or even in Europe, you know, the views of men regarding relationships and marriage and even just generally life is very, very different. You know, sometimes like people say African men are not romantic, European men are more romantic, American men are probably, you know, but it can be a cultural thing because in some parts of the world, like in Africa, you can't live with a woman. For how long do you think you can live with a woman and not be married to them? It's not very typical. In Africa, there's a system. When you meet a woman, maximum 2 years, you need to be making up your mind. Are you, you know, settling down or not? Because I think nobody wants illegitimacy when it comes to kids and all that. And it brings shame as well sometimes to the families.
And the family's very much involved.
Families
date someone's
But in Europe, you know, it's each one for himself, God for us. So everybody just does what they want, and then we save up our whole lives to actually have one day of a ceremony, and, you know, they make a whole big fuss about the whole marriage thing. So I think it all depends
in Africa
on
as well, it's a process. So firstly, you know, like do your knocking, and that's just acknowledging the fact that you two are in a relationship, and then you go to your customary marriage, which is a true marriage for us, and then you go, if you choose to, you can have your big wedding. But that whole process is like quite a long process, and it takes a lot of commitment. A lot of people,
and because there's a lot of people, this is the thing. It seals that commitment, and then that's why it makes it more difficult. But then in the Western world, because we just go and sign anyway, it's just one process. Oh, we're engaged because someone just proposes and that's it. But in Africa, it's like people go and actually do some research. They investigate family members. They go and find out exactly where you're from, who's your mum, who's your dad, you know, what's your lifestyle like. They really kind of, there's a whole big thing that goes into marriage. It's actually, you know, it's a very, very important process.
But maybe that's the research that we're doing before you live together. So in this part of the world, people live together to know what that person's like. Can they truly live with them for the rest of their life?
Before I never used to believe in that. I used to think, well, you can date people, you don't have to live with a man to get married. But as you mature, depending on what life experiences you actually get to deal with or face, you realize that actually sometimes you need to try something a bit different. And I think it's a very individual thing. You know, some people have been blessed, they're lucky. First time they hit it once, that's it, they get it right. But then some people have to spend, you know, a lifetime searching. Some people to, you know, so it's just, I think I put it down to grace and luck.
Yes.
You know, if you're lucky, you find and believe. You have to believe. And also, when you spend time with people, it's about people spending time with people. I think these days, you know, people with the age of technology, people are not really investing in relationships anymore. So living with somebody, it's not just for the fact that, oh, we live under the same roof. You know, you're doing this and I'm doing that.
You probably actually spend less time together when you live under the same roof than when you are actually dating.
Yeah, when you date, you tend to want to do more stuff. But living together is supposed to rather be the time where you actually really get to acclimatize yourself with the person's, you know, little things or, I don't know, characteristics or behaviors that, you know, it's just trying to prepare yourself for that next step.
But the thing is, in the Western world, they try to make it more comfortable living with a partner, living with a partner together rather than getting married. Because first of all, they'll put it in your mind, divorce is very, very expensive. And if I'm living together with you and then you work and I go to work and we share the bills, well, I get married, we won't come back to that question. So they put it in the head of the people that lives around here that if you think about it twice, it doesn't make sense. If you get in it, why should you get married? You know, but in Africa, we value such things. We very marry, or our culture, where we're from, our grandparents, our grandmas, and everything. Like you said, they have to go and do all this research and find out where the person is from, the man or the woman, and see you if you're going to have a successful marriage from their family tree background. You know what I mean? But because we are living here and these people to their system, it's absolutely different. So sometimes that's where these things clash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes that's where we have this problem. These things clash. And there are some older generation, you can't even ask this question at all. You know what I mean? But it's the new generation today, they will ask this question: why getting married when me and my girlfriend, there's nothing wrong with
We're
us.
happy.
We're happy. We've been living for
Maintaining the
years. We've been
status
living
quo.
for
Why
years,
change it when
and then we
why
have
fix
our
it when it's
house,
not broken?
we have our children, we have our cars. We don't have no problem. You know what? Why getting married?
I think sometimes too it comes from pressure from like the family. So from a woman's point of view, sometimes like your parents could pressure you into you need to get married, you're getting on, you're getting old, and then they'll be pressuring the guy now.
Yeah.
So it's like you, the guy, you feel like, oh, this is something that I have to do for the girl, not necessarily for yourself. And then before you know it, you're in a marriage and you have to make it work, or it could just break down. That depends on the two people who are actually involved. Me personally, I think that sometimes pressure is good, but the wrong pressure is not good at all.
Yeah.
And I think you need to get married for
It
yourself
happens very often.
and your partner, not because other people want you to get married, or you need to make a decision. And like you said, in Africa they could give it 2 years and then you have to make a decision whether you want to be with someone properly or not. But then when you're living together, you can't base things on like a 2-year plan, because otherwise what's the point in even starting to live with someone in the first place, So
It's 23 months and like, ooh.
exactly.
Next
Time
month,
is coming
that's
up,
it,
I need to leave, So I think if you're living with someone, it does feel like a marriage anyway. So if you do feel like you want to take that next step for security reasons, cultural reasons, then I can accept that, and I see why people will do it. But if the question we're asking is why get married when you're living with someone, so for me it's like, what's the difference? There isn't really much difference, apart from like when you searched legally, you're going to get a house or whatever you want to do, you're both under the same surname. That's the only difference really, for me anyway. That's if we're answering that specific question. I understand why people want to get married, definitely, but if we're answering that
When you're already
question,
living together,
I don't really see the difference. So that's my answer.
Time might pass as well though. You might be with someone and you didn't intend for it to, and then the circumstances happen, but then before you know it's 10 years and you've still been living together, isn't it? We haven't, we said we're saving, other things have come up and we're still not married.
Because when I was growing up as well, my brother had a friend and his parents, they weren't married, but they had been together for 20 odd years, and they were, I personally thought that they were married. They were, they were doing everything like how my parents were, or like other people's parents were. But they were, they were not married legally, but they were still living like a married couple and doing things exactly the same as how anyone else would do. So that's why I'll, come back to that point that there isn't that much difference in living with someone if you're not married, and also living with someone when you are married, because you do the same thing.
But then it's a bit strange, like if you meet someone and they got family. What's the point? Yeah, but they got family and they say, that's my girlfriend. Like, that just doesn't sit right.
That's true.
You're saying that you're there with your family, you're like, that's my girlfriend. Show some kind of commitment. And
that's true, but after like 20 years of calling her your girlfriend, what
would you really call her your girlfriend after 20 years? Then they change the partner.
You'll change the partner.
That's what they call it, a partner.
Trying to kind of, make it sound nicer than it actually is, but you actually haven't given that person that. It's a bit like a promotion. You haven't given that person that promotion.
That's true.
You have to honour what they've done for you.
I think then actually, I was just thinking about the question over and over again, like Dan said, why get married when you're living together? Actually, really, you shouldn't get married just because you're living together. I think that's the bottom line. You get married for whatever reason, as he said, but you don't get married just purely because you're living together. It's not the next natural step, living with somebody. Because as Priscilla was saying, you could be living with people for all kinds of reasons. You get to live with people for all kinds of reasons. Yeah, people even are roommates, and then they end up falling in love, and then they decide to take that step. So I think it needs to be very clear why you're living together first of all, before you can actually make that statement to say why get married when you're already living together.